My name is Michael McLuhan. I'm from the International Business Accelerator. We're the first domestic business accelerator in the U.S. to focus on international growth. So we catapult high growth companies into the international market and global growth. We do it quickly, compliantly, and profitably. And we do a lot of that by working with the participants that you'll see tonight, leveraging their expertise and their experience. And of course, the resources that are available from the public sector, the private sector, and academia. So tonight's topic is how to thrive in country. It's what to expect and what to do and what not to do in the foreign market in which you're going into as a growing company. So in our accelerator, we go through the litany of all these things that you need to consider: pricing and positioning and FX strategy, foreign exchange strategy, what to do if a country devalues their currency in between the time that you sell and you're expected to get paid on the invoice. There's graft and corruption, and there are all these different things. One of the things that we always work on is matchmaking and partnerships and joint ventures. How do you get into the country? With whom should you partner? And as you'll learn tonight, who are the people you can rely on to vet those potential partners and those potential JVs, joint ventures? Anecdotally, I'd have to say in our accelerator, one of the key things that we bring and we make our founders browse, at the very least, is a book by Terry Morrison, T-R-R-I Morrison. It's called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. So no matter where you're going in the world, this book will give you some insights and answer your questions and give you the expectations of how to deal with the cross-cultural issues and the distinctive customs and the behavioral styles that your counterparts will expect. And if you subscribe to those and if you do those, your negotiation and your success is going to happen a lot quicker. So administratively, here's the run of the show tonight. I'll hand it over to our esteemed expert. I would say one of the top, let's just say the top export international trade professionals in the area, Stephen Chung, and he will interview one of our favorite founders in LA, who, contrary to most people who start domestically with traction in sales and then think about international growth and global expansion, our guest tonight actually started in outer space, and now she's sort of reeled it back and went international pretty much right off the bat to acquire a competitor. And then after that, we'll have our expert panel moderated by the Dean of Loyola Marymount University's College of Business Administration, Dean Smith. And then one last thing, we'll have a lively chat on the side, but when you have questions, please put them in the Q&A section. And that way Dean Smith will go through them and she'll address the questions in the Q&A. So please don't put them in the chat, but please network and put your own information in the chat, your own profiles. We want people to have a lively networking event as well. And then I'll be summarizing and taking some salient information and resources and links and data points and putting them in the chat for everyone to take away. At the very end, we will compile all this and then we'll send it to all the participants. So with that, I will turn it over to Stephen Chung from the World Trade Center, Los Angeles, and one of the head honchos at Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation. Stephen.
Thank you so much, Michael. Good to see you. Happy post-Thanksgiving, everybody. Delighted to be here to facilitate a quick conversation with Aaron Beck, the founder and CEO of WANA. Lots of exciting things, so I'm going to give myself 10 minutes to do this because we have a lot of other discussion as well. I'm going to time myself. Let's get right into it. So, Aaron, first, since Michael alluded to it, you're going to have to tell us your background. How did you go into space and how did you come back to Earth?
Sure. Before I went into entrepreneurship, I was at SpaceX as a mission director for the Dragon spacecraft. So I started just before we launched our first Falcon 9 rockets, and then departed shortly after we began development on the crew vehicles that are now flying astronauts to the ISS. So I was there largely for the cargo. part of the mission. So the very first dragons, the very first birthings to the ISS, the first time we were delivering the mice and the ice cream and the socks and all of the other things that went up to station. And it was an absolutely riveting and enthralling job, exactly, I think, as you would expect it to be. However, when I had my first child in 2016, so she's 4 years old now, I did find that my priorities shifted to wanting to be closer to home. And it wasn't even necessarily closer to home, but I wanted to be closer to my family, whether that was at home or it was abroad. My husband and I had recently returned from a 15-month sabbatical where we backpacked over 5 continents. And when we came home, we did return to Los Angeles, but we didn't return to LA in the way that we had left, where we were residents and feeling like settled in LA. We came back with this thought that we will remain travelers, but we will enjoy this city and the things that make it truly special that you can't find anywhere else in the world, as if we are still travelers. Being an entrepreneur allows me to be mobile and remote with the people that I care most about when I want to be there, at a moment's notice.
Excellent. Well, before we go on to your current role with WANA, I want to thank you for scaring the hell out of me when, in the middle of the night, when you look out a couple years ago now.
Oh my gosh.
Below in the sky, and we had no clue what's happening. We thought we were being invaded by aliens. But, now we know it's because you guys are doing great things, exploring the universe for us. So thank you for that. But now we're going to switch over to WANA. Can you tell us a bit more now that you're back closer to your family? Tell us more about WANA and your company, and what does it do?
Sure. So when I set out on this entrepreneurial venture, this idea that I wanted to be able to work remotely and mobily wherever I was and have control over my schedule, I found that because I didn't have a regular job, I couldn't afford childcare. So unless I was going to solve the childcare problem, I wasn't going to have time to work on anything. So I went into the childcare problem. WANA Family Network hosts a cooperative childcare platform. So the idea is all families who give and receive in kind, so you take turns watching each other's kids, are able to use the platform forever free. It was extremely important to me that we make free childcare accessible to all families. And then we came up with some clever monetization strategies to make it so that everyone either gets free or affordable care, no matter how they use the platform. But what WANA Family Network became is not what I expected it to be. I thought I would build this cute app and people would come and they would use it and they'd get free care and everything would be fun. But I wasn't the only one with that idea. That's a marvelous thing. We want that to be the case. Please, everyone go out and solve the childcare problem. And at the time where WANA Family Network was growing, there were these other really fabulous companies, not just domestically, but internationally, that were also finding some traction and success. And in 2019, those companies got together and said, we believe that we would be better as collaborators than competitors. And at that point, WANA Family Network really became what it is now, which is a collection of these companies doing this work in different parts of the globe. So our domestic leader is called Comay. Our international leader is called Sitster. And that does come from a company that we acquired from an incredible founder, Laura Farnsworth, out of London at the end of 2019.
Great. Now, you have the world at your fingertips, especially being here in Los Angeles as one of the most diverse location in the history of humankind, according to Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, with over 140 nations represented right here, with over 224 different languages. And of course, we're supported by a lot of resources from around the world, including the world's 3rd largest consular corps. Over 103 countries have their consulates or their representatives, either full-time or honorary, located here to provide that service. How did you pick the country that you're going to be entering outside of the United States?
Great question. It was, in this case, it was opportunistic. There happened to be a fantastic company based out of the UK that was ready to enter into this type of collaboration. We started talking, we moved forward, and so the UK was a very natural fit. But what happened at about the same time, I think, is what led that to be so successful. We were connected with the International Business Accelerator. So you just heard about that from Michael McClune. They happened to be focusing on the UK with the upcoming cohort. We learned about them a week before that started and said, we're a week from signing this purchase agreement. Let's make sure we're working together. They were able to connect us with a lot of the base level knowledge that we needed to enter that market successfully, and to connect us with the people who would give us the deeper layer of knowledge and the connections. And we were talking about, how do you make the smart connections? How do you vet the right players that you want to be interacting with? And two that were really instrumental for us were working with London and Partners, which is out of the mayor's office of London. And then the Department for International Trade and the consular here in Los Angeles. And the wonderful thing about being in LA is the real in-person people were here in LA to make those connections and have those conversations. And then when we did go to London to sign the final purchase agreement, we were greeted there by London and Partners. We were able to meet at their office space, use that for some of those transactions, get connection to legal and marketing support, and guidance in how to enter that market and then how to stay there stably. So being in Los Angeles and having connections to those resources really made a difference in our feeling prepared to make that happen.
A lot of companies, as they're thinking about their international strategy, it becomes overwhelming, the questions that they ask. How did you prioritize, what kind of questions you're going to ask, folks like London Partners and DIT?
I like that question a lot. A lot of it was, when we went into it, we knew so little that we didn't have a lot of questions. So we asked those questions first, and then we learned more, and we said, oh, we should really be asking these other questions, and we asked those. And we allowed each answer to inform the next question. So, it's extraordinarily intimidating feeling that you have to know everything going in. I think the most important thing is to have connections to the people who know everything, so that you can learn along the way and be able to ask the smart questions and get smart answers to keep up with the pace of your change.
Got it. With London Partners, coincidentally, I'm actually going to be doing an event with them tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. It's both ways, actually, because our international partners love coming to Los Angeles and they can't. So tomorrow we're actually going to be doing a virtual tour. So these international companies are coming to LA to learn about LA, and we're going to be doing the same thing. So there's this mutual exchange between the two sides. With all that great resource and connection that's there, I was wondering how, with the UK, you have so many different options, right? You have Liverpool, you have, Scotland if you want to, you have Wales. Like, why London? Why did you pick London? How did you pick London?
Yeah, the base of operations was already established. And I think that this is important for any entrepreneur that is getting started in their international expansion, is, where do you have a base? Where do you have something that's comfortable? Where do you already have staff? Where do you have a bank account set up? If you have any of these pre-existing resources, it's okay to lean on those. And like you said, there's so many options that flow from that. We haven't faced a compelling need to make changes from the base that was already established, but we know that we have the options and the opportunities to do so. So, for any founder, whether it's you're going international or you're just focusing domestic, I always say, start with the base of what you have and be flexible to be able to change that as you learn more and your priorities change.
And when you're having fun, time flies, and our 10 minutes already up. So before you go, one last question for the audience. Most folks ask you for one final piece of advice. I think sometimes that's hard to choose. I'm going to ask you for two final pieces of advice that you can give the audience as you're thinking about the international approach.
There were two big questions that I had that we have found some reasonably satisfying answers to. So I will share those. One was what to do with our social channels and our marketing strategy. And we had a group of folks do a quick survey for us of large companies to small, and if they had diversified their communication channels or if they had consolidated them. So Did they have continent by continent channels, or were they using a single one? And it wasn't a question of if a company would segment their channels, but a question of when. And that to me was very useful, because I was dealing with this question of if I should segment my channels. That turned out to not be the question. It's when do we segment? So I thought that's something that we continue, continue to carry forward with. And then the other one was when COVID started for us. It was a big question of, are we going to be able to have the same types of operations in the United States as we do in the UK? And it may seem very obvious that no, worldwide, everyone's dealing with this in different ways. It's going to be very different. But understanding how it would be different was the challenge. It turned out to be less of a challenge, because we were able to connect with London and Partners, who was able to connect us with the National Health Service. And we were able to have a really great conversation about what was happening in the UK and how we could quickly adapt to that. And it turned out that the circumstances were sufficiently different that the way we did operations here and the way we did operations there were completely different, and the opportunities were different. And so that was the other one, is to assume that those opportunities are going to be different, and allow yourself the bandwidth to be flexible to say, I am going to be a slightly different company in different places from time to time based on the needs of the people that are there.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us. I'm going to ask you to stay on with us so that our next moderator can ask you some questions as well. And also the audience later on might have some questions for you as well. So thank you for joining us. And now at this point, I want to pass it to my friend, Dean Dale Smith, which is the Dean of the College of Business Administration at LMU, one of our favorite universities in Los Angeles. Dale, that's all yours.
Thank you, Stephen. And what a wonderful experience and learning from that, Aaron. I really appreciate that as well. So tonight, our panelists, we have three. Carlos Jimenez from the Mexican Consulate. He is our Consul for Economic Affairs, and we'll be able to share a little bit about thinking about Mexico as a partner and in opportunities. We also have Vince Lacapola, the EVP for Growth and Strategy for Alba Wheels Up, a real expert in areas of logistics, particularly when it comes to international partnerships. And then finally, we have Richard Swanson, who's joining us from the U.S. Foreign Commercial Service, a wonderful resource for advice and support in all of that. And I thought I would just kick it off with a few questions for our panelists to get things started, and then hopefully we'll get some questions from the many folks that are here, both students and also quite a few entrepreneurs and executives with SMEs. So to kick it off, I thought I would start with Carlos, especially with the USMCA, that United States-Mexico-Canada agreement. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about this new situation with this agreement being full of opportunities and challenges for SMEs and startups who want to think about cross-border relationships. Could you tell us a little bit about those opportunities and things that our business folks here could consider?
Thank you, Dal. Thank you to all organizers for inviting me to this session. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you for your question, Dale. The USMCA is very important, and it has a positive effect that is worth considering. I would like to give you a series of tips to take advantage the opportunities offered by the USMCA. About 10 tips. But first, I would like to quick refer to the situation before the USMCA to contextualize the favorable change that the new agreement has brought. If we take into account a look at NAFTA throughout its 25 years of life, we see that the trade and regional competitiveness in North America increased widely, but did not sufficiently consider the participation of small and medium-sized companies. Those who were able to take better advantage of NAFTA were really the large company that have ample resources to to analyze trade agreements themselves, market abroad, implementing everything necessary to take advantage of the opportunities offered by these agreements. And I want to highlight that the participation of small and medium-sized enterprises is very important to our economies, because they are highly creative, very versatile, quickly adapting to new needs and changing environments, a great generation of employment, and an important economic engine. In fact, in this pandemic and post-pandemic stage, the participation of SMIs is now and will continue to be very important. Well, in this sense, I would. We have good news. The USMCA, effective as July 1st of this year, takes into account small business. It recognizes them as critical part of the economy, an important factor in maintaining business dynamism and competitiveness. It recognizes them a crucial part of economy, an important factor in maintaining business dynamism and competitiveness. In the chapter 25 is related, is new chapter, is a specialized chapter to the small and medium companies, and have a very close relation with all the content of the agreement. Well, let's start with the tips. Tips number 1 that I have for you: know and take advantage of the agreement. Chapter 25 is intended to offer new opportunities for expansion and participation in international markets. It will offer tools through institution, electronic media, face-to-face training, online training, and a lot of useful information in support of the trade and goods and services. One of the main players in this case would be US Commercial Service with information, training, contacts, etc., that you can take advantage of. But also other organizers that this series of webinars who will always be ready to support you. This chapter pays attention to startups, early stage companies, seeks to promote the participation of women in business, and in general to all the small, medium companies. The chapter also encourages active participation and feedback with the small and medium-sized companies to develop best practices to be gradually implemented in the agreement. Creates committees in which academia and other interested parties are also welcome to participate. This agreement also includes the creation of dialogue in this matter between the partner countries for benefit of the SMIs of the 3 countries. And as tip number 2, the recommendation is to take advantage of the trade facilitation. For example, there are custom facilitation options for shipments in certain amounts. Depending on the goods you sell, you can find advantages in the chapter for the treaty. Tip number 3 is digital commerce that has been treated in these seminars. As you can see, the pandemic has clearly revealed many of the advantages of scope it has for both goods and services trade, we are taking not only about stores, but also with platforms to offer any type of service. The tip in this case has to do with making sure that the platform you use has the security measures in place to protect financial information such as personal or business data. You also need to, in addition, you also need to pay attention to your own internal systems and think about the steps to keep them safe.
Mhm.
As tip number 4, take a look about the tools available. Identify the sources of information with useful tools for your business. In this sense, U.S. Commercial Service, for example, has experts, but also electronic platforms, training sources, manuals, information, or custom fees, and many other elements that will be useful to you.
Carlos, can I break in here for a bit? You've mentioned in 2 of your tips that the foreign commercial service can be so helpful, and I'm wondering, since since Richard Swanson's on the panel as well, maybe to get this more going in a conversation, Richard, you could speak a little bit towards you know, how the commercial service has really helped people who might want to look at crossing the border.
Yeah. Well, good to see you all. It's so great to be here tonight. And hola, buenas tardes, Carlos. ¿Qué onda? Good to see you again. It's been a while. I would say, you know, look, I think, Carlos, you mentioned a couple of the great chapters. My favorite chapter, though, in the new USMCA is the digital chapter. And I know we have a focus here on the startup, you know, series about the digital economy and about the digital platform and everything. But I think it opens up the door for a lot of cross-border, you know, especially in this environment, how we can start to synergistically work together with just Canada and Mexico and the US on a digital platform for the whole region, not just for one area, one state, one county, but for the whole region. To me, that's real exciting. And Carlos also opened up the door for chapter 25 in the small to medium-sized enterprise chapter. That also includes women. And I've spent this last year promoting the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative. And I can tell you that there are some fantastic opportunities for women entrepreneurs starting up and going global very quickly. I like to call it born global. And so I think Carlos and what I like about this is, you know, we used to have our compartmentalization of export promotion, foreign direct investment, commercial diplomacy. They did what they did, we did what we did. And now we're working together. And I think this USMCA, more than anything, has brought us together commercially, diplomatically, and systematically saying, hey, if this company exports or wants to, there might be an opportunity on the other side of the border as well. Let's see if we can come together. So our dialogue is getting better because of USMCA.
So how has that worked with the 2 of you? And I know Vince also has some input that he could probably bring to the party, especially around, you know, challenges around cross-border duties, taxes, distribution. But, you know, in a situation, say I'm entrepreneur who sees an export opportunity. I'm real excited being female and wanting to take advantage of the chapter you referred to. How do you all work together to make this happen?
Was that one for me, or?
Well, actually, I think it's for all 3 of you, because I'm asking.
Well, let's let Vince take this. He can diplomatically go between.
There you go.
Yeah, we've
Well,
already heard
thank
from
you.
government types. So yeah, Vince, why don't you tell us how it actually?
So thank you, Dale. And Richard, good to see you, even remotely. Haven't seen you in ages.
Yeah.
I think this is a good kind of contrast that the agreement has a lot of policy at a high level. And then there's a tactical part of it. What happens tactically when something really needs to cross? And for my questions later on about finding the right partner in your target market of entry, it's essential that your U.S. partner, whether they're broker or forwarder, and then their counterpart in that country be aligned with not only the vertical industry that you're in, but your business model and even your culture and philosophy, right? It's like it's hiring an employee. So USMCA, very good agreement. Love the digital, love the SMEs. From a tactical point of view, because that's a privilege. So the privilege parts of USMCA that talk about digital, that talk about e-commerce is an e-commerce piece. And then there's also a piece on direct-to-consumer, which is e-commerce, and there's a piece on women and labor. There's a lot on labor as well. So those are at a high level. When you get to the tactical level, depending on the vertical, either like in apparel, not much has changed on a tactical level. Your minimum value content's the same. You know, the amount of labor and value you have to put into Mexico is about the same. But these other parts of the agreement about market entry, right, for women or protection of U.S. intellectual property under the digital, right? Those were badly needed changes that, you know, people weren't thinking about 20 years ago when we did NAFTA. So yeah, I think there is a lot of opportunity for USMCA now. It is easier in my view, and I have this a little bit in my part. It's a little easier now. Everybody thinks of USMCA of people manufacturing Mexico and just, you know, just pushing everything up across the southern border into the U.S. market. But it is easier now for U.S. companies to get entry into the Mexican market.
Mm-hmm.
So that I do see.
So Carlos, to that point, how does the consul work factor in here? In other words, let's say you are looking to make that change, and I know there are certainly some tips that come out of the agreement that give some opportunities to think about. But you know, what advice would you give for details for me to be successful? I'm the entrepreneur who wants to get across. What details would you give me to be successful?
Well, it's important for a small business when want to go abroad, determine if your product or service would, sorry, 1 moment, please. Determine if your product or service would have demand in that destination. It's important to see what happened with your product. If it's if it has demand, it's important. If it's solving a pain in the new market, if you should pay attention in regulatory differences. Not all the places are the same. You have the information about the United States, your city, your state. But what happened when you go to the other part of the country or another continent? There are a lot of differences in legislation, certifications, in the cultural differences. It's not the same for the way to sell in this city that you need to use when you go to another country. Maybe the colors are different, another important issues, and you need to take in account all these differences. In addition, you have logistics, advertising, many other things to make a difference. And it's the lag between to have success or not. Then it's important to take advantage of the tools of the new treatment. The new treatment opens new opportunity to take in account. Was not in the last agreement, but nowadays has been put in the table. And it's important to use it. The tools will be present, will be this year in develop, but there are a lot of places, a lot of institutions that will provide this information, these tools, these platforms to the small business to be to succeed in the purpose to go abroad. Yes.
And is that, Richard, when they would come to you at that point to go on?
Yeah, it's not uncommon that Carlos and I refer each other to companies that are doing certain things that bode well for our respective agencies. And my thing is that all of us do four things. We do export promotion, we do commercial diplomacy, we do advocacy on behalf of the company, and we also do foreign direct investment. And for startups, look at all four of these avenues for your expansion and do it simultaneously. We can't afford this TikTok sort of approach to where, I shouldn't say TikTok, but this incremental approach. We're moving so fast and people are tasking so fast, multitasking, that look at all four of these avenues. What can you do in terms of export promotion? What can you do in terms of commercial diplomacy? Commercial diplomacy is working with Carlos and I and Terry Batch and the respective country, economic and diplomatic entities. That can be very helpful in terms of background information, in terms of knowing what policies and regulatory environments are. Advocacy, if you find yourself in a bid or in a tender or in a project, whether it needs project financing or whether it's something that's over the internet and is just a procurement, look to folks like the SBA, look to the Commerce Department, look to entities that can help you with those procurement opportunities, those cross-border procurement opportunities. And lastly, foreign direct investment is going three ways here: Canada, US, Mexico, Mexico, United States. Look at foreign direct investment in a way that you may have never looked at it before. They might be a good partner. They might be a good importer. They might be someone who can expand your brand in some way. It might be another infusion of capital. So those four areas, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an SME, if you're a startup, those are with you right away. Just learn how to juggle a little bit and you'll be fine.
Yeah, and it's interesting that your comment about the foreign direct investment. I mean, we know even from the work that Stephen Chung's done with his organization. I mean, that's a big driver in the California economy. So being well versed in that would be
a great role model right there with the LA EDC for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely. Now, Vincent, you and I talked earlier this week about some of the logistical challenges in entering the new markets. Could you speak a little bit to what some of those might be? And Richard and Carlos, jump in when you've got solutions to the challenges Vincent throws at us.
Yeah. So thank you, Del. So I think the market here is mostly entry-level companies, maybe some startup, maybe some newer folks. So to try to be as positive as possible, the best way to do this is to go back over my 30 years and look at these people that had tremendous products, like they were genius products, and their market entry didn't work. And if I ask myself, well, and others, like what happened, right? So one of the most common things, and some of the things I'm going to say seem very complex and very difficult, but the solutions don't have to be. The solutions can be really simple. I think it was Dale or somebody earlier on said, if you don't have to know the answer, you have to know who knows the answer. Or I think it was our first guest that Stephen interviewed. And that is so true. So if you're located in Southern California, you have a tremendous opportunity over everybody else in the world. There are 380 customs brokers. Most of the young customs brokers all over the country want to come to Los Angeles, or if they're at the top of their field, their company sends them to LA, right? So we are the Pacific Rim Gateway. So the resources that one has in this market are very different than even great cities like Houston or Dallas that have 80 brokers, 100 brokers. But besides Rotterdam, Hong Kong, LA absolutely is a global capital for trade. So what do you have to watch out for? If you are going into a market as a customs broker, I take I take it seriously. If you're going into a market that crosses a border, I know this is going to sound very simplistic. You're leaving your country, okay? And you're leaving, and I think that Mr. Jimenez mentioned this. You're leaving your country, and other countries, just like ours, have rules and regulations that keep for national security, to keep their consumers safe, that can protect their intellectual property. So, the most obvious thing that could go wrong in very, very rare cases is that you may not have the authority to sell that product in that market, right? It's in a very narrow case. But in most cases, it's a great product. And depending on its use or how that country treats that product, you have to follow those regulations. No one is going to be an expert overnight, especially if you're going into 3 markets at once. So no one's going to be an expert overnight at Mexico, Philippines, and Thailand. But every one of those countries has their version of the FDA, right? So you find a great customs broker. LA Customs Brokers, we have UPS and FedEx as members. We have companies that have only 2 people as members. Most of us are in the middle. You find a good company that knows your vertical, widgets, cell phone cases, agriculture, whatever, mostly, apparel. And most importantly, they have to have a really good partner in your destination. Pick somebody who has good experience. So what could happen? What have I seen go wrong? Well, the first thing that goes wrong, the most common thing is that you start talking about price with a distributor or a customer before you really know all the costs of getting into that country. And then you have to go back and say, well, I just got duty. I didn't know this company had a national sales tax or GST or whatever. I have to add that on top of my price. It's not a great look for a first sale, to go back and start changing the price, or you have to eat it.
Right.
Or I've seen companies, and it's very simple. You go to your broker in LA, they go to their agent in Melbourne, they give you a cost of what it's going to cost to get into that market. Picking the right distributor is really important. Okay, you trust the distributor. Do they have a good agreement? If you have a trademarked product, does anybody in that country have a pre-existing distribution license that you might be in violation of? But mostly sticking to getting it. I'm going to be very tactical. You need to get it across the border to where the goods are sold, from where the goods are made to where they're sold, so you can sell it to your target market. And it will not cross that border if it is done in regulation with all the agencies that control the border. In our country, 49 agencies control cross-border. Only 8 have hold capacity, but 8 is a lot. So you do have to do your homework if it's subject to FDA or consumer product safety, if it touches the skin, if you're selling vitamins. You have to make sure that you're researched over there. And secondly, you really have to take into account all of the logistics costs, plus all of the duties and taxes, but have that discussion really early in the process rather than later.
Makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's really all about doing your homework, knowing where to get those resources, and that's where the U.S. Commercial Service can be so very helpful, as well as the the Global Trade Center, et cetera. One of the things, one of our participants who's attending tonight asks a question, and I'm not sure who might have the answer to this, either Carlos or Richard, I'm thinking. But do you have lists of companies in Mexico or Canada that might want to partner or do a joint venture or some kind of strategic alliance with a U.S. small company? In other words, for those who don't want to go it alone, they're looking for that partner abroad. What's the best way to find out where that potential lies and then how to establish that relationship?
From a government perspective, you know, we have a service called Initial Market Check. And we do have small fees attached to some of our services, only because publicly we're okay with not charging anything. And through September of last year, we didn't charge, for small to medium-sized enterprises, we didn't charge anything because of the crisis and the pandemic. But, you know, doing an initial market check, getting in a market, Vince brought up a very good thing. It's like, as a small to medium-sized enterprise or a startup, the last thing you want to do is backtrack your steps globally, because it's very costly. So if you can front forward a lot of intel, a lot of intelligence gathering, a lot of market analysis, get all that, disseminate, hire an intern from LMU, pay them. They will do it better than you or me combined. And the thing is, between Carlos's agency, mine, and, you know, Vince's organization and LMU and everybody out there, we can provide great intel on the market, on distributors, on potential, you know, buyers, retail chains. A lot of people are going directly to retail, if possible, or online retail. And so, you know, that supply chain, you know, logistical side of it's becoming, you know, part of the play too. And we're getting better and better at that too, optimizing that supply chain, you know, for the fulfillment aspect of e-commerce. Boy, has that become the breadth of study and analysis for small to medium-sized enterprises, but we're getting better at it. So it's that analysis, that market, and getting background information. Also, let me just add too, the background information that organizations like ours can provide will go into potential trade finance. I know in the startup, we've talked about finance, but just remember, marketing and finance go hand in hand along with distribution. And getting that finance, that trade finance, that credit insurance, extending the receivables of your potential buyers, even from 30 to 60 to 90 to 180 days, could make all the difference on you paying for that inventory and getting it cross-bordered. So that
you don't make money with it sitting in your warehouse here, that's for sure. Carlos, what advice could you give in terms of organizations within Mexico who might be looking to partner with a U.S. small company? Any insights there?
Well, depends on the product, depends on the services, it depends on the place that company prefer to go to offer their products or services. Mexico has 32 states with different characteristics, and many cities, many places with clusters of different things, small and medium cities. Depends on the place, and the option to in general we can consider that the country has offices abroad to help their small and medium companies. In the case of the United States, your resources are all over the world, with offices from U.S. Commercial Service, for example. They are in many places, and they have the presence in my country, for example, to help the people from the United States. In the case of Mexico, I am helping the people from Mexico. I am occupied to know the organizations, the companies, the counterparts here, the distributors for the Mexican companies. In the case of Mexico, there are many offices from the U.S. Commercial Service that can help the people from here. And of course, if you need, I connect you with the organizations, with the associations, with the Chamber of Commerce in the states of Mexico. I can assist in that matter, of course.
And that would be then a great way to start that homework and begin to address some of that. That notion of that intel and that research seems useful. And I want to promote what Richard was saying. We often do have student interns, whether they're from LMU or other local colleges. I know we have some high school students even who are interested in global and world trade in the audience today. And they would be wonderful people to hire as interns to help provide some of that background information and do the outreach to start getting this intel together. The Q&A is open, so I'm happy to take questions from the audience to any of our speakers. While we're waiting for folks to get their questions in, let me ask our panel here how COVID has really changed operations when we look at things like the virtual trade environment and some of the challenges our various agencies and organizations are facing. I wonder if our panelists could each take a shot at talking about how COVID and the pandemic and what we expect with the supply chain coming up will really change the way we're thinking about startups, SMEs, et cetera.
Well, yeah, I'll take a stab at it. You know, we prepared some material for the LA Chamber event in April and with UCLA Anderson. And I think some of that data is still relevant. Actually, we saw some trends in April, and we actually saw them come to actually happen in the summer. So one, I just want to circle back to e-commerce that Richard talked about. Many startups, because of COVID, before COVID and because of COVID, are trying to sell direct to consumer. And it can be very tricky because it is a preference program in most countries. And what I mean by preference is you have to meet certain criteria, can't be above a certain value. So if you're planning to sell your product electronically direct to consumer, but no distributor in a foreign market, you must research what the value thresholds are for duty-free treatment. And there are certain articles like medical devices and other things that are not eligible for e-commerce direct-to-consumer sales. So I just want to throw that out there. Tremendous opportunity, but just Richard said it great, do the upfront work, because it is, and e-commerce is exploding all over in every market, every government is struggling with it. COVID, I'm just gonna boil down a high level trends that we saw. Those of our apparel customers that pivoted to personal protection equipment very quickly did better. Believe it or not, small to medium-sized enterprises were more agile than large global corporations, and they were able to make more local decisions more quickly, which I think is a plus for all those folks on the call that are looking to do something new. The other thing is that so it was the pivot. It was the ability to rapidly change your vertical. Like some apparel people went from blouses to masks, but some went from snowblowers to electronic devices that we're selling at home. So agility, being able to pivot, those companies did much, much better. The 5 strongest in our client base, in Alba Wheels Up client base, are tech, agricultural chemicals, mailers, direct-to-consumer, anything with e-commerce, anything. And this is the first time that the value of a product, like this phone, the delivery system is now part of the product. So this phone in brick and mortar can be $1, but this same phone on a platform could be $100. So now how you get it, whether it arrives at your door or whether you go buy it, is actually part of the value of the product, which is a relatively big breakthrough. I think words of encouragement for some of the new entrepreneurs out there, just by intuition, those that were not exporters, I'm talking about, that were not locked into 20-year distribution agreements, were able to pivot more quickly. So the logic would follow that being a younger company or being less mature might give you more agility, in COVID to find the right partner for you. So some things to watch out for. Four things to watch out for in COVID for new companies are revenue timing. Newer companies are more sensitive to when they get their money because they may not have a lot of money socked up. So when you actually get paid, and then the other issues that we saw, very very weedy things like our packaging was coming from China, and China was locked down.
Right.
So US exporters couldn't package anything to get it out of the country. We didn't have a big so packaging. I think that microfinancing at some government level is absolutely crucial for California manufacturers and exporters and startups, especially in this environment. So
well, I definitely anticipate those California lobbyists working really hard in that respect.
Yeah. So those are the quickies on COVID. I think we're still learning, and it's a hard thing in your company, like in our company, when it's a health issue, it's a social issue, it's a terrible pandemic, and now you have to be viable economically in it as well. So so if we can be a resource, I will finish with this. Mike has been pushing me for years to get more serious about the startups and new markets. So during COVID, my company, we actually created a new brand that is not even supposed to turn a profit in the beginning, just to help. It's called pre-clearance, just to help folks that at a certain volume break into a certain market. And those companies are separated, they're treated differently, they're given a little more attention. This way, the rest of our staff doesn't say, oh, we don't want that business. So now we actually take that business and facilitate it, and we put you in a startup kind of incubator.
Yeah, and that's really the value of accelerators, right? Because it really does help everybody connect the dots and to get the support and share expertise. There's another question coming in, but before we leave that, any other insights from our panelists, our discussants here around the COVID and the pivot and how that may affect the way we look at cross-border trade?
I'll add a little on what we saw from our side, which rather than actually moving to direct to consumer, because we do family services, we actually moved away from direct to consumer. So when we started the One Family Network platform and when the Sister platform was originated in London, those were both created as direct to consumer, go straight to the families so that they can start arranging their childcare situations. In the United States, the first thing that we did when lockdowns began was to ask families to stop trading care, which functionally shut down our direct-to-consumer business. We followed with a similar statement to our UK users the following week and have maintained that now since March. In the United States, we were able to find a quick pivot to workplace benefits because while families, many of them are not receiving care, those who are in essential services do still require that. And there's significant pressure on workplaces to provide options for that care. That's been enormously successful for us on the US side. However, on the UK side, schools remained open for essential workers and childcare remained available. And on top of that, there's not the same distribution of benefits through the workplace in the United Kingdom as there is here in the United States. So we found that to be a channel that was not only not available, but also not needed. So our focus, though we had to shut down the majority of our direct-to-consumer work on the UK side, our focus then became on soft things like community building, on building our social channels, on our marketing channels, on our sponsorship channels, rather than focusing on the actual activity. In this case, we're providing community support and a place for conversation. So a strong example of two different places having dramatically different distributions and opportunities based on the structures of those of those countries and how they are individually responding to COVID.
Right, and then trying to learn from what is the problem we're trying to solve once that situation changes. So another question has come in from our attendees. Mark Patterson asks, first he says he's enjoyed hearing from all of you. In engaging contractors in a foreign country to perform local services, helping a US company, are there particular elements we need to make sure they are reflected in their contracts beyond the NDA, the scope, and payment terms?
You know, if I could just give one shout out to the District Export Council of Southern California, which I'm a member. There's about 35 of us appointed by the Secretary of Commerce. And we have brokers, attorneys, contract attorneys, freight forwarders, and Richard, Commercial Service sponsors us, appoints us. So, you know, if you go to the DEC website, we actually created, based on vertical expertise, there are great attorneys out there that will help you with contracts and distribution, and even some that are really warming up to the idea of working with startups. So I just went to it's DECSC.com, and it's private public sector cooperation, and there are many attorneys on there that would help you.
I was just going to respond to Mark's question in the chat box, but one thing I've seen overseas that's devastating is to be extra cautious about your legalese in a foreign market. Can't get into any details, of course, but I've seen companies lose out on their patents and their trademarks. Both of which are assisted within the Department of Commerce, PTO, the Patent and Trademark Office. But I'll tell you that you will go 10, 15 years in a country, perhaps expanding your exports, your trade, and then eventually manufacture and assemble in that foreign country. But you've got to be careful, because what you do from a patent standpoint and from a trademark doesn't necessarily equate to the same laws and regulations within that foreign country. Now with USMCA, I'm not legalese and I don't know, I don't profess to know, but always get enough legal information on both sides, both in country and both here in the United States. And Vince is correct. I mean, the Southern California District Export Council is one of the most powerful export councils we have in the entire country, fortified with some of the best attorneys, in the world, literally. And they're there to help you, at least initially, as much as they can. But watch out, because a company in a foreign country, and companies everywhere, can build on your patent. If they improve it and they make it better consistently over the years, they could potentially file, some restrictions on your original patent in the country, and they could also compete with you later on in other markets. Mm-hmm. So just be really careful about those patents and those trademarks.
Yeah, excellent advice. Carlos, anything you wanted to add from the consul's perspective?
Well, I think the coronavirus is a special case that we are realizing all the changes, all the opportunities as well. Mm-hmm. Very extensive space for innovation, for taking account all the needs that can rise from the pandemic, and is an opportunity to create products, services, taking in account the changes in many ways. For example, now the people that are looking a new house is looking for another things than before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. Nowadays looks for a space to have the computer in a separate place, and with the new furnitures that allows to deal more with this situation, for example. But there are a lot of changes health, in food, in distribution, in communication, in platform for services, different services. And all this is an opportunity for change, for taking advantage. And in all the countries, there are different situations. The approach is not the same. Depends on many things related with the density of population, communications, health services, and many things that also is interesting to take in account for the people is interested to export or to provide a service or to import from other parts. They have a very good product or service, and make partnerships with the complement of our product or services in order to provide the consumer another thing more developed, with more more favorable for use. Yes, there's a lot of opportunities. Is a moment to study, to pay attention of the situation and the changes.
No, I think I'm certainly delighted to hear about how there's so much cross-border collaboration among, you know, our governmental agencies and the support of local agencies here in the LA region that can really support SMEs and new ventures in the startup community. If there are no other questions, it becomes my pleasure to thank everyone and then send it back over to Michael McClune, who will join us for some closing remarks. I know I learned a great deal tonight, and I'm so delighted that so many people could join us. After Michael finishes, for any LMU students that are looking for the CBA QR code, that will be posted shortly, so hang in there. Any other closing comments before we turn it over to Michael?
Only one that, well, go ahead. Go ahead, Stephen.
Sorry, I always jump in too late. I was just going to add to actually what Richard, you're saying. A lot of companies, when they're looking at one market, they don't look down the line in year 2, year 3, where they can jump into multiple markets. So when, back to Mark's question, when you're asking your consultant to look at a market, you might want to think about the regional aspect. So when you're going into Europe, you might not just go to one country down the line. You might, you know, set up your operation in London, then later on you want to go to the EU. So with that, you have to basically look at those accounting practices and basically what the taxation is going to be. Another thing that's really, I think folks are now becoming more and more aware is specifically because COVID is allowing folks to interact a lot more via, you know, Zoom and using, you know, various applications. The data that they're collecting also becomes somewhat sensitive. So for example, in the EU, you have to be compliant with the General Data Protection Regulation. So if you're not familiar with that and you get a consultant that basically does not advise you properly, later on you might be in trouble. And then in Asia, if you're partnering with certain, you know, say tech companies that later on when you're coming back to the United States or going to other countries, there might be certain players that may not be seen equally as a tech provider. So you want to make sure that as you enter in partnership with them, you look down the line in terms of what those implications are. So those consultants should definitely help you give you that information. And like everybody's saying before, do your research. And we're all here, you know, with this entire group. We all work with each other, so we all want to help you with that. So
and to build on that, just we've been talking a lot about products, Dean Smith. I know, but remember, I noticed the list. I was looking over the list, and I noticed a lot of service companies are joining us tonight. And so don't be afraid to ask for assistance regarding your service, your value-added service. I'm seeing automotive, I'm seeing energy, I'm seeing architecture, I'm seeing press, all sorts of great services. We do that too. Carlos does that. We all work on that. Services are becoming a new trend as well. And so that's something, if you have a service, don't be bashful. You know, ask for assistance. You've got a great cadre of folks right here.
Yeah, no, those are really good points because it really does run the whole gamut. And, you know, it's funny, in international business, we often talk about the fact that you think globally and act locally. And when you're starting to think about how do you export from our local region, it really is knowing the global and then acting locally and making sure all the ducks are in a row. Really appreciate the expertise from the panelists. You all were absolutely amazing tonight. Michael, back to you.
Sure. I'll just pick up on that thought that we have an ecosystem here that is incredibly supportive, and there's solidarity among every facet of it. I've had conversations with Carlos, and he knows what geographic area of Mexico has an appetite for U.S. either companies and their solutions or partnerships to work with them, and vice versa, to create bigger companies or complementary solutions. Dean Smith, I'll have to second, I think it was Richard that said LMU interns are the best. I have two. and even if you're not from Southern California, I would highly encourage you to get some as well. Not to objectify them, but they're outstanding.
Well, Michael,
Stephen,
can I just add, although we are fans of LMU and they are a great home team, my daughter's team plays them this week from UCI. So I'm kind of hoping we'll have a little.
Well, but I think the interesting point there, Michael and Richard, fans aside from whatever you are an alum of, is the notion that it's really that almost that tri-sector innovation. How do government organizations, the academic institutions in a region, and business come together to make things work and do it both regionally and then as we expand globally. And I think those kinds of partnerships really are a wonderful way to train the next generation for cross-border trade and a more global economy, as well as really taking advantage of the various expertise that comes from all three sectors. So anyway, thank you all. And Michael, I didn't mean to take away your closing remarks. Never finish here.
Sorry about that, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. I think that's a perfect manifestation of what my original point was, following on to yours, is that everybody works well together. I was emailing Stephen's staff about I'm trying to connect a local company with a Korean company that's making 40,000 COVID tests a week, and they want to do it here in LA to do a made in the USA product. And his services, suite of outstanding services are free. Vince, I want to go back to what you were talking about with the deck. I'm also a leader in the global LAVA community, with LAVA standing for Los Angeles Venture Association. So we do a monthly presentation, and just last week I had your colleague in the deck, David Habib, who's an international trade lawyer. Fantastic guy, as knowledgeable as you can get. And he is not only eager to do these panels, but he's eager to answer questions from startup founders, whether they have traction and they can afford his services, or they're just starting to take the steps and they're interested in preparing for what we've been talking about tonight. So, and Richard, you represent the U.S. Commercial Service. And there's a fee attached to what you do, but it is pennies on the dollar for the value. All of our portfolio companies that we work with in our accelerator, Aaron and all the others we've done in 5 years, we always introduce them to the commercial service. And we say this is the epitome of a governmental service from the public sector that will accelerate you as quickly as possible, and the quality of the work that they deliver is amazing. And it opens the door to the county. And we had Christine from the city of LA. Next week we'll have a representative from GoBiz from Sacramento, and we all work well with federal agencies as well. So I have a lot to say, but it's already 6:15. So I want to thank everybody for being part of this community.